8 years ago, they pretty much launched their whole business, GoDaddy, on that one Super Bowl commercial, which was pretty unbelievable at that time. It was the same year that we ran our commercial featuring Justin Timberlake for Pepsi. And Justin had some demands. He said he would only do it if they did it at his restaurant, which was our restaurant, Southern Hospitality. So if you look at Southern Hospitality online and you do Google search, you'll see the video of our Super Bowl commercial where Justin gets blown out the front door, and then he gets transported all over and he bounces. Probably remember that Pepsi commercial that was on many years ago. It's very, very effective. In addition to that, he demanded that we let the logo of Southern Hospitality go on 50 million Pepsi cans. So that was a pretty big coup. The Pepsi wanted to get Justin to do the Super Bowl commercials and had to give him what he got. Entrepreneur is being timely, being organized. It's kind of having your ducks in a row and making sure that things get done. As I said in the last class, half the job is just showing up. You show up, okay? That's a really big step because a lot of people don't show up. And it's shocking when you do interviews and eventually when you all become entrepreneurs and you start hiring people, you'll see this for yourself. How many of you, by a show of hands, have ever set up a job interview and then just never showed up? It's just me. No, it doesn't matter. I won't hold it again. None? Okay. All right. One good guy. About 25 characteristics of entrepreneurs. And as you're going to see from the entrepreneurs, guest speakers that we're going to have this semester, and from some of the video that you're going to watch, most of these entrepreneurs share these traits. And the first one is a commitment to a purpose with passion, which we just talked about. By the way, there's an attendance sheet. People could just pass that around. I'd appreciate if you could print your name. So the passion is the first most important thing. Whatever business, whatever idea you have, you must have that passion, and it's going to be able to show through. The courage and willingness to take risks. I mean, that's the epitome of an entrepreneur. That's the definition of an entrepreneur. Taking risks, not being afraid to try something new. To lose a little money, make a little bit of money, reinvest in yourself, as you're going to hear from a lot of the entrepreneurs. Keeping a positive attitude. Even during the worst days, trying to keep that positive attitude is very important. Because your employees, your vendors, the people that you're going to want to work with want to see somebody as their leader. And if the leader is having a bad day or is down, generally it's going to bring the company down as well. So it's important to keep positive and to have a positive attitude. Strength of character and fortitude. And character is an important thing. It's your word. It's your trust. I was watching a special on CNBC last night about the diamond industry, where all the deals are done on handshakes. There's no contracts. There's no money. Everything's done on a handshake. You take a few diamonds. You take a package of diamonds, and it's $50,000. Bring the diamonds back with the $50,000, or we're going to come looking for you. This has been working for thousands of years, the same exact way. So it's kind of interesting that your character and fortitude to actually deliver is so important. Your integrity. Your integrity when you say you're going to be there, or do something, or show up, or deliver your homework on time. Things like that. The integrity, it shows your employers, your employees, your people that you do business with, that your integrity is really what you have. Because they're doing business with you, not your company. Your company just happens to be there, but it's really about doing business with you. So make sure, even if you're tempted to take a shortcut, well, if you think that you're not going to get caught, you get caught. You get caught eventually. Okay? We watch it on TV all the time. All these smart hedge fund managers that think they're going to get away with insider trading or going to dinner and wink with the left eye and wink with the right eye. Everything's on cameras today. They catch you very, very quickly. So keep that integrity up. Even if it's really tempting to do something that you think you're going to get away with, don't do it anyhow. This sets a very bad precedent. Vision, the ability to see things that other people do not see. As we watch this video series, as we hear your ideas, as you saw from my lecture last week and how I got where I am, I'm always staying a little bit ahead of the game. You must stay a little bit ahead of the game, or else you're going to end up like MySpace, behind the game. Okay, you want to be Facebook, you want to be Twitter, okay, you want to be Instagram, okay, and then you want to be the next best thing. Because as we all know, MySpace used to be the next big thing. You know, now I'm getting real worried about Facebook. I'm getting worried, you know, that Twitter has figured something out there and it's going to eat their lunch. So they're pretty worried. That's why they bought Instagram for $1 billion. They saw that Instagram was going to put them out of business if they didn't do something pretty quick. Dedication and commitment to your project. If you don't have that right away, go on and do something else. It's a lot better to pass on ideas than do something just for the sake of doing it. Because you're not impressing anybody. You know, you may be thinking you're impressing your family, your girlfriend, or somebody, but if you don't have the passion, the commitment to do that, you know, you're probably going to fail. Being a self-starter. I would think that's the single most important thing of being an entrepreneur, being a self-starter. You have to get yourself up every day, because it's real easy to stay home and say, maybe I'll leave at 11 o'clock today. So I want to sleep late, maybe I want to do a little workout, take a little sun, and then maybe go to work. Maybe not. So being a self-starter, getting yourself going every day is really very important. And with that becomes time management. You need to be able to control your time. Not spend too much time on one thing, don't spend too less time on other things, and once things get overwhelming, you're going to need to hire employees. That's what employees are for, because you can't do everything. As you're going to hear over and over this semester, you know, try to find employees that have the same type of commitment as you do. Okay? And keep in mind that employees are not entrepreneurs. You're the entrepreneur. They work for you. So don't expect them to have that same level of dedication that you do, because they're not you. They want to go home at some sort of reasonable hour. If they wanted to be an entrepreneur, they would do that themselves. That's why they're working for you. Okay, so keep that in mind. Decisiveness. Very important as an entrepreneur. You have to make decisions. You can't flounder. You really can't flounder. As you're going to see when we do our buying trip this semester, when we sell our goods on campus, you must be decisive. We're going to go and buy for a couple of hours, and you're going to buy your jewelry, and you're going to buy leather goods, whatever you want to sell, and you're going to have to make that decision. At the end of the couple of hours, we're going to pay the money to the vendor, and then we're going to sell the merchandise. So every day as an entrepreneur, you're asked to make decisions. And it's up to you to make that decisions. Of course, you know, as you build employees and have managers, they're going to have to make those decisions as well. So it's not all going to fall on you ultimately. Team building, leadership skills and team building. Everybody likes to feel like they're working in a team. People resent that if you're the owner and you talk down to them. I've learned that my entire career. I treat my secretary and my top managers or the person that cleans my office the same way, because I want to get treated back the same way. And a lot of people forget that. They think that they're the king boss. They're driving up in the Maserati in the parking spot that says, reserved for the boss. Don't even think about parking here. You really need to keep your ego in check, because that'll get you in trouble too. Employees will start to resent you. They won't come in. They'll sabotage your company. They'll go work for the competition. There's a lot of things. So what does it really cost to be nice? Every time I walk into a restaurant, I say the same thing. I say, does it cost the waitress any extra to be nice? And her tip is on the line for this? You know, as you saw the fella in the video say, you want to see how good you are? Be a waiter in your area and see if you're as good, if not better, than the other waiters. And then you'll kind of see whether you're cut out to be your own boss. Because when you're a waiter, in essence, you are your own boss. Your section and how fast you are and picking up the vibes from the customers. You know, That's like the basic square one. How many of you ever waited tables before? Only one.
I have.
Yeah, there we go. Okay. Resourcefulness and resilience. Over the semester, you're going to meet a lot of interesting speakers and a lot of talented people that are going to come in here, whether they be former students. It's important to network with everybody, even yourselves. You're going to want to network with each other because once you're out of school, who knows where you're all going to be? Obviously, you got into this class, which is the first right step. And many, many times over the years, I've seen people network, hire other students that have worked for them. So networking is important. LinkedIn, very important. LinkedIn. You need to use it right, LinkedIn. Okay? Everybody here have a LinkedIn account? Okay, if not, you should get one. Because this is the business Facebook, if you will. It's the place to really put everything you've accomplished and all of your connections and your friends and on a business level. Okay? It's not a place where you're going to see my vacations. I would not put that up anyhow. But it's a place where you'll hear some of my lectures and some of my guest speakers and some of the different blogs and websites I read every day. Like I said, I try to curate your reading material, which is invaluable to you, especially when there's thousands of things to read on a daily basis. And I read just about 3 or 4 newspapers every day. Today's Wall Street Journal talks about Pinterest. How many of you have a Pinterest account, by show of hands? Okay, not that many. Okay, 2. Okay, here's something, nobody has any accounts, and it's just been valued at $2.5 billion. That's an awful lot of money for nobody here to have any accounts. I can guarantee you in a year from now, everybody's going to have an account. It's like we talked before about Facebook. At one time it was just a dream. Now everybody has that account. Broad knowledge, reading the newspaper, understanding. How could you have a conversation with a client to take him out to lunch and not know about world affairs? How many of you heard about Maya Koch dying the other day? Okay. Before that, did you know who he was?
Yeah.
Okay. Very outspoken, probably the best mayor. He was mayor during when I was at Brooklyn College, and he was famous for saying, "How am I doing? How am I doing?" But he felt it. Mayor Koch really did the right job. He was the quintessential New Yorker. And I believe there are going to be other guys. I don't believe what Bloomberg said the other day, okay? Koch was not a billionaire like this mayor. Okay? And I think this mayor's probably done as good job as anybody in the history of mayor. So I'm certainly a big fan of Mayor Bloomberg, and especially his philanthropy and what he's done for countless people all over the world. He's one of the most generous people, certainly the richest and most generous mayor of our time. But Mayor Koch was really like one of the people. I mean, when he stood out there with his signs and his buttons, you really felt that he cared about you, okay? He didn't leave for the Bahamas on his private jet for the weekend. I can guarantee you that. He was out there every day hustling, and that's why he was so endearing to New Yorkers. And that's the type of ceremony that he got, and the praise from former presidents, coming down and praising him. He was a real good man. Sorry they left us. Strong negotiating skills is something that you're going to learn over the years. Because whatever product or service that you're going to end up selling, there's a lot of negotiating involved. Whether you're an accountant and you're negotiating fees, how would I do that? I'd go and I'd size up the guy's place. I'd say, this looks like a really nice medical center you have here. Looks like there's a lot of work, and I like the stained glass up there. And I think this is going to probably cost $1,000 a month. And maybe another doc I walked into that didn't have such a fancy place, maybe I would quote him $500 a month. So you have to negotiate. And you have to get the negotiating skills up. And you do that right now. You can negotiate with your parents for allowance and money, and cars and gas money. And this is just taking it to another level after that. And then lastly, the ability to create strategic alliances and understanding the leverage of things. And what that specifically means is you're going to make alliances with various different companies and people, and you're going to help support their causes, they're going to help support your causes, and then that's going to start your connections. Because it's about helping people. And, it's not always about money, writing a check, and then forgetting about, the opportunity. Sometimes it's really, whether it be mentoring a student, or hiring somebody, or getting a celebrity for an event that they would have no access to, somebody. A lot of this is strategic planning, and you're going to have to gear your mind as an entrepreneur to try to get that going. Okay, so that's the list of that. You could look at this on your own. So today we have two student speakers who are going to present their idea to the class. And also, in a little while, we're going to hear from our first guest speaker, William Dupetter, who is nice enough to come to the class for us. Comes from the finance and insurance world. We'll get to hear him a little bit later in the class. But let's hear it for our first guest speaker, Joey.
I sort of delved into it in summary last class that we had about this idea of sort of projecting an application that allowed for people to receive receipts instead of sort of paper receipts, just getting everything to your phone, to your iPad, to your computer right after a purchase. I got the notion of this when I actually had an environmental science class and got into this debate about environment and stuff like that. And I was like, you know what? This conversation is actually going to get more, and it's going to get bigger and bigger as time goes on. And environmental friendly initiatives are going to, get large. The whole environmental friendly initiative, the entire movement is going to get larger as time progresses. So I thought about this idea of basically having an application that allows for you to receive a receipt of what you purchased right after the purchase was made, instead of having printing a paper receipt, which is what happens today. On top of that, I was thinking about taking that receipt or that application and combining it or syncing it with your bank account and your credit card company. So that way you can know your balances. That way you can, see the level of spending. For example, when I got that idea from the Discover Card website. One of the things that they have is that nobody else has is basically they allow for you to see the amount that you spend every single month and compare and contrast how you did it in previous months, which also allows you to sort of keep within your budget. And I thought that would be a very cool thing to have. Now, today in our days, and this is sort of connecting it to the other aspect, something else that I was working on, credit is really, really important. It seems like credit is the biggest thing, it's like everybody needs credit, everybody wants credit. You want to buy a car, you need to have credit. You want to get a loan, you need to have credit. Credit's like this thing that's really important. But it seems like people have more of an issue today in our generation get to that point, to get credit, to get high credit, to receive more credit cards, to get loans, to get cars. And the connection that I thought of between this application, which is just a simple receipt, allowing for you to get your budget, allowing for you to sync your bank account and stuff like that, is for people to understand the notion of how to maintain proper credit. And the application itself would give you an alert, for example, saying, with the syncing of your bank account, it would basically say, hold on a second, you have this much money in your account, this is your credit limit, and you're about to spend this much money, which may affect your score, which may affect your risk factor, and by and large, which may affect your, the opportunity that you may have to get more credit in the future, loans, vehicles, you name it. So again, this is something that I was thinking about, not polished, obviously, just a thought. A friend that I have and myself have been sort of trying to put this together, just the idea on paper, and then obviously we're hoping to proceed in it. But as I said, it's just a thought at this point, but it's something that I definitely want to pursue, because it seems like this field is something that's really, it's getting larger by the minute, it seems like. My father is in the credit business, and it seems like people are just really, I wouldn't want to say it this way, but desperate for credit. And giving people the opportunity to get that in a way that would help them build their credit. Something that hasn't, it's not out there, and something that should be out there. So
it's a fascinating idea. I mean, certainly, could you imagine your credit card company saying, "Are you sure you really want to make that purchase?" I don't know how long they're going to be able to stay in business. So here's an application that takes the best of all worlds: your checking account, your bank book, and kind of understands. It's like a smart credit card. It sounds like what he's trying to invent here. That helps you with your credit scores. There's a lot of spin-off businesses from this, by the way. I mean, certainly car companies, loan companies. I mean, there's a lot of apps. I mean, that could probably get incorporated with your application. How many of you, first of all, understand what his application? Okay. How many of you would like to use that type of an application? So you have a lot of validation here. So from your peers that they would probably use something like that. And it doesn't sound terribly complicated. It's just really linking your bank cards, your credit cards, and then trying to keep track of all of this. And
everything that you buy would basically, like I said, the receipts would just be there. And I think it sort of connects, I forgot to mention, you just brought it up, connects to what we spoke about last class. People just sort of, I forget the exact term that you used, but you buy on like emotion, I guess, or feeling like, just buy to the blue. You're sitting in bed at night and just like, you go to Amazon, you start buying this and buying that. And it happened to me. It just like, I thought I was going to sleep early, but my wallet was right there, my computer was right there, and it's just so easy to, I guess get into that situation.
Sounds like a great budget tool. Good job, Joe.
Yeah, I'm friends. And I specialize in making custom lollipops. Last class, I gave you a little idea. This is something that when I was growing up, it was like baby showers and weddings, you would have these favorites, but to me it was done very sloppy. They weren't tasty, and I thought about basically bringing back the same idea with a new modern twist. Right now I'm in the process of doing a startup business. I make specialized favors for baby showers, birthday parties. My target market is like parents and children. I fuse loving children and being creative into this idea of creating these lollipops. Sorry. All right, so basically, I will have a consultation. Like this past week, I had a consultation with the parent, and she's having a christening. So I will go and they'll give me the invitation. So she's doing a Burberry themed christening. So I will go speak to the parent one-on-one, find out what ideas they want. So she's like, the christening, do you have something like for the cross, angels, booties? And I would bring samples of the different flavors. I do dark chocolate, milk chocolate, white chocolate. I can change the color of it. She wanted to do a Burberry theme, so I told her maybe I can tie the bottom of the candies with the Burberry burgundy and the tans. And basically I try to make, the experience of the parents enjoying that moment with their child more memorable. She's like excited, it's her first child, the christening, oh my God, and I go along with that energy and I try to make that memory lasting. So basically to start a business, I will go and I would, assist they organize. So for the month of February, I have a baby shower, a 5th birthday, and the christening. Baby shower is going to be 120 lollipops, and I create like this display. Like I'll go and get like a foam, like a stand, and I'll go to like a craft store, decorate it with the colors and the themes of the baby showers, and then I would stick the lollipops inside the stand. So in addition to you having favorites, you're having a display at your occasion, so people like that as well. For now, I'm not looking to have a big store. I just want to start off with the kitchen. I was looking for a kitchen, and this week I was on my lunch break at work, and I went to get some Colombian food. And the owner overheard me speaking to LegalZoom about getting the name patent, trademark, excuse me. And afterwards he said, what's your idea? I took out my phone, I started showing him pictures of my work. He was like, I love your idea, I love your energy. Use my kitchen. So I'm like, use your kitchen. And I was really shocked by it because my big issue was, selling it legally and having this kitchen. Instead of going through the commercial kitchen through the city, they want you to spend $300 for 8 hours. I'm not going to make chocolate for 8 hours, but they want me to basically give that $300 up and I'm not making that money back in. So this guy, I call my Spanish angel. He said, let me use his kitchen. I just have to get a few things intact. So that's the first thing. And in the future, I look to have a big store. I would like my employees to be all young adults and teenagers. I work with my younger sister. I work with Chase High School account. As she worked with me, I pay her to work with me. So just to like invest back into the youth and my family and the community. If I meet, one of your children and they are interested in making candy, I would like to work with them in the future and just invest back into our youth and let them do something positive.
Is a senior advisory for the Promontory Group. I believe that's the way it's announced. And prior to working as a senior executive at Promontory, he was a high-level president for the Metropolitan Life Company outside of America, I believe, and as well as one of their senior advisors here in the United States. So he is here to tell us all this story. So let's give it up for Bill.
Well, thank you very much. I'm happy to be with you today, and I'm willing to bet you that I've learned more from you than you're going to learn from me. But I will tell you some little parts of my story. I think it ties in with what you've been talking about in terms of, particularly in terms of vision. I think that I was in a situation where I was already working for a large corporation, which was MetLife, and I was looking for opportunities to create something new. And I started to pay more attention to what happens outside the United States than what happens inside the United States. I have to tell you that at the time, MetLife's business was all in the United States. And while it was a good business, I thought there were a lot more opportunities to grow it outside than inside. So I just started doing some research on publicly available information, so nothing that was secret or anything like that. And one of the things you find out when you start doing research on other countries is you find out the growth rates of the countries. Almost every country in the world, with a few exceptions like Japan and some of the countries in Western Europe, almost every country in the world is growing faster than the United States. Almost every country's GDP, their gross domestic product, is growing faster. And almost every country has a lower penetration of insurance than the United States. When I say penetration of insurance, what do I mean? What I mean is, what percentage of the GDP, the GDP, is just the total of the goods and services that are produced each year in the country, right? So what percentage of the GDP is spent on insurance? In the U.S., you can look at different numbers, but it would be probably 7 to 9%. Same thing for a country like England. But if you look at a country like Mexico, just as one example, you would see that less than 1% of the GDP of that country is spent on insurance. So what does that mean? It means there's a tremendous amount of room to grow. And as I did this research, I ran across I guess probably more of a joke than a story. It's a joke about a president of a company, and he sells shoes. His company sells shoes. And so he gets this man that works for the company. He says, I want you to go out to this island. I want you to do a study of the market. And I want you to come back and give me a report about that market. And so the man goes out and he comes back with a report. It's a nice long report. It has lots of facts and statistics and figures. But basically what the report says, in a nutshell, is this is a terrible market. nobody here wears shoes on the sign. So the president is not very happy with that report. He's not sure about that, so he gets a woman and gives her the same assignment. He sends her out to the island, and he says, I want to report. She comes back and report lots of facts and statistics and charts and graphs, and it looks very nice. But in a nutshell, what it says is, this is a great market. Nobody here wears shoes. Okay. The point being that if you have something to sell, whatever the something is, it could be insurance, it could be shoes, it could be chocolates, it could be anything. If nobody in a particular market, or very few people in a particular market are using that, you can view that in two ways. You can say it's hopeless, or you can say this is a huge opportunity. So I took the point of view that this is a huge opportunity. Let's go try it out. Let's see if we can sell insurance in Mexico, or we can sell insurance in India, or we can sell insurance in China. And I'm not saying there was no insurance there. There was some, but it was very, very little. So what we did over a period of time, and I say we because over time you have to put together a team, right? You've got to put together a group of people to do this, and it involves people. Certainly in the countries that you're targeting, you're not going to do business in China with a bunch of Americans. You're going to do mostly, you're going to do business with Chinese people. You're not going to do business in India with a bunch of Americans. You're going to do business with people from that country. So we put together some teams, not very big ones, but over time they grew. And we went from basically from zero. We were not making any money outside the United States over a period of 10 years to where we were making after taxes in excess of $2.25 billion. So the opportunity clearly was there, and you had to build on that opportunity. Now, a couple of things I would say about that. One is, so vision, I think, is the most important to me. I looked at the list, and I certainly agree with the things that are on the list. But if you don't have that vision, if you don't see the opportunity, then there's not much that you can do. Once you see the opportunity, once you grasp the opportunity, then I think a very important part of building a new business is, I'll call it persuasion. In other words, no matter who you are, well, I shouldn't say that, because I guess if you're already a billionaire, maybe that would be different. But since I wasn't a billionaire when I was starting, no matter who you are, you're going to need other people to sign on to your vision. You're going to need other people to say, I see the opportunity, persuade me of the opportunity, I'm willing to work in that business, I'm willing to put my sweat into that business, or I'm willing to invest in that business, because you aren't going to be able to grow a business of any size unless you get people who are going to back you. And in order to get them to back you, you have to persuade them to do that. And I think you do that through, you certainly do it through, the regular things you would think about, hard work and research and develop the facts. But I agree with the gentleman in the film who said they're really not buying the idea so much as they're buying you. So, are you able, do you have the self-confidence to persuade people basically to follow you? And they're either following you by working with you, right? Or they're following you by putting their money. Maybe you find people who are investors. It could be individuals, it could be people who want to buy shares in your company, it could be people who could be bankers. It doesn't matter who it is. Ultimately, they're going to have to be convinced that not only do you have a good idea, but maybe equally important with that you can execute on that idea. Because I hate to tell you this, and you probably know it already, there are lots of good ideas out there. There are lots of good ideas. But taking a good idea and turning it into a money-making proposition, that's a lot harder. Otherwise we have a lot more successful people in this world if everybody who just had a good idea was able to turn that into money. It doesn't quite work that way. And in the course of executing on that idea, all of those things on the list start to get really important, like persistence, right? Perseverance. Why? Because you will fail, right? Unless there's somebody in the room, I'm assuming everybody in the room is a human being, right? As I am. I failed many times along the way, many times, right? You get an idea, you try something, it doesn't work. What do you do when things don't work? Well, the first thing I think you have to do is you've got to go back and look at the basic idea and the execution of the idea. Sometimes I think people throw out ideas too fast. In other words, they run into a problem and they say, oh, that was a dumb idea to begin with. Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Maybe it's a good idea, but maybe there are some pieces that are missing. Maybe you need a particular thing to make that idea come true, and you don't have it. Or maybe you've got some of the wrong people that are engaged in that idea. Even if you've got a small team, it's pretty clear over a period of time that people's capacities to do a job change, right? And also jobs change. So think about some of our most successful companies that were created from the ground up. A lot of these companies, the person who has the original idea, the person who gets the thing going, the person who starts the thing, isn't always the person who can manage it when it gets to be a company of 100,000 employees. Right? It takes a different skill or different skills. And there are lots of different steps along the way. So one of the things that you do have to focus on is being a keen judge of people, right? And being willing to take the actions on people that you need to take. Meaning, if you have somebody that's really good at starting up a company in a particular country or a particular part of a country, and the company is doing well, but all of a sudden you see that the company hits a plateau. Maybe your sales have been going like this, and all of a sudden sales plateau. And for 1 quarter, 2 quarters, 3 quarters, your sales are flat. Something is wrong. And maybe, I'm not saying it always is, but maybe something is the people that are running that particular company or that particular sales division. You have to stay close to your business in order to know them as it gets bigger. And I'll give you an example. A couple of years ago, I got a phone call. I answered the phone, and this person at the other end of the phone is screaming at me. I mean, screaming at me, calling me all sorts of names, curse words, you name it. He's really angry. By the way, doesn't even say who he is. Now, I happen to recognize his voice because he's one of my competitors. Right? And so I said, will you calm down, after a while. Tell me what's bothering you. You know what you did. You're trying to put me out of business. He's yelling and screaming. So I said, look, obviously I can't talk to you. I'll figure it out. When I figure it out, I'm going to call you back. So I hang up. You know what this was? This was a situation where this man ran a huge company. I'm talking huge, even bigger than my company. Okay? And he was so focused on that business, on every part of that business, he knew something that was going on in Korea, right, between his company and my company, and Korea for him was probably less than 2% of his company. Right? So you've got to say to yourself, here's this guy, he's running a huge financial empire, and yet he's calling to yell at a competitor about something that happened in a market that's less than 2% of his business. What does that tell you? Now, I mean, it can tell you a lot of things, right? You can say, oh, I'm mad at that guy because he called up and yelled at me. actually, I respected him for doing it. Right? I mean, I didn't necessarily feel like he did it the right way. But what I respected was, here's a guy who's running this huge company, thousands and thousands of employees, and he knows what's going on in some little corner of his world, of his market, and he knows that somebody else is doing something competitively that he doesn't like, and he's going to act on it. To me, I thought to myself, I got to admire that. I got to admire a guy who's going to, you know, you talked about Mayor Koch.
Right.
One of the things about Mayor Koch was, you know, he always, you didn't necessarily have to agree with him, or maybe you did, maybe you didn't, but he always stood up for New York, right? He never took any shit from anybody about New York, right? Whenever anybody said anything, he was right there, he was good. Well, this guy was the same way, right? This guy was running a huge business. First of all, he knew the details, and that I had to respect that, right? Here's a guy who knows his business. By the way, there's a flip side of that, which is micromanaging, which can get you into a lot of trouble too. But I think in this case, the fact that he knew what was going on and the fact that he was going to stand up for his business meant a lot to me as a competitor. So I think that as you grow your business, things are going to change, and one of the things you have to remember is it's not always going to be the same as it was at the beginning. And it may be that you need to do different things, that you need to adapt, that you need to learn new things, both about the marketplace, but also about your own company. That's going to put you in a better position to not only build the business, but to continue to be successful. The other aspect of this is you, as I said before, you will fail. There will be times when you don't succeed. And then you have to make your own analysis of what's wrong. And you have to figure out those people that you can trust. Because I don't think building a business, even if you're the person at the center of it, even if you're the entrepreneur, even if you're the one who came up with the ideas, the world has gotten sufficiently complicated so that nobody can do a successful business of any size and scope without some people they rely on, right? Without people that they trust. And so the judgment about those people and the selection of those people and making sure that those people are in the right spots, right? Because, as I said before, somebody who's in the right spot on day one, on day 10,000, may not be in the right spot. Doesn't mean, by the way, and don't get me wrong, it doesn't mean, by the way, that people have to be fired. Usually what I find is that if you've got people in the wrong space, there's a better space for them, right? There's something else that they can do that's going to contribute to the success of that business. So it doesn't necessarily, the only time I really had major parting of the ways with people personally is when it came down to a question of integrity or honesty. You can't afford somebody in your business that's going to, what I used to tell people is, the only thing we can't tolerate is people who are going to damage the reputation of the company. Anything else you can tolerate, pretty much. You tolerate people who have crazy ideas every day. One of those crazy ideas probably will work. You just have to figure out which ones. But when it comes to honesty and integrity, that's a place where you have to draw the line. The other thing I would say to you is, as you do this, the main things to look for, at least from my perspective, are finding places, as I said before, where there's open territory, right? Where there's something that's needed, but also finding a way that people can pay for it, right? Because one of the interesting questions is, people need lots of things. You said people need credit. You're right, people do need credit. The problem is sometimes the people who need credit the most have the least ability to pay it back. And therefore, And therefore, you've got to figure out a way that you can actually make it into a viable business proposition, that it's something that you can do. And by the way, in the area of credit, if you look around the world, especially in countries like Pakistan, for example, Pakistan is a very poor country. Bangladesh, another very poor country. What they developed in Bangladesh originally, and has now spread to a number of different countries around the world, is microfinance, right? And you've probably read some about this and seen some about it, and it's an amazing thing because what they've done is they lend small amounts of money, very small amounts of money. I'm talking like $50, sometimes $25. But of course, the purchasing power of that $25 is a lot greater in Bangladesh than it is here in the U.S., right? And they lend, a lot of this lending is to women, and a lot of it is to women in small communities that have ideas for businesses. It could be weaving clothing, it could be setting up a small grist mill to grind grain, whatever the business happens to be, and they form a group of people, a group of entrepreneurs in that particular market, and they lend the money and small amounts of money, and there's tremendous, I'll call it peer pressure, I guess, from the people in that group to pay back that money, right, as they have their businesses grow. And they have tremendous success rates. If you look at the, in finance we call it default rate, right? It's the question of how many people are going to default on their loan, which means I lent you $1,000, and now comes time to pay back, or to start making payments, and you default, you don't pay back. The default rates on those loans for microfinance in countries like Bangladesh are among the lowest in the world. So think about that. You have really poor people. You don't have people, in most of these cases, they're not people who are educated, right? So they don't have any sort of, in many cases, any sort of formal schooling. They're setting up small, new businesses, and they're paying back their loans at a rate that's higher than what businesses in some mature countries, many mature countries, economically mature countries are paying back. So, in that case, they found a way, using not only the techniques of microfinance, but they're also using the psychological effects of nobody in that group wants to be the one who fails. Nobody wants to be the one who doesn't pay back. And so they honor their commitments and they pay back their loans. And of course, what that means is the more, as that business grows, the more you get people paying back the loans, the more you can lend, right? The more you can do. So I think you have to find not only where the opportunities are, but you also have to find the way in which you can make it a viable business for your customers and for yourself. I mean, obviously, you've got to make a reasonable profit, right? That's part of the game here. But it's not just finding an opportunity; it's finding one that you can execute on. So I think maybe I'll stop.
Yeah.
And you want to do questions?
Well, you should. Let's take a couple of questions.
Yep.
But the microfinance is a really great point, and I think everybody should take a look at that business model. A lot has been written about it. It's so spectacular. I'm glad that Bill brought that up today. These third world countries, you have women who are knitting hats and paying back money, and they have no opportunity to work or to earn money. And these microfinance banks, I believe one of the fellows actually won a
prize.
I think a Nobel Prize in economics.
Right.
Putting together that.
I think he got the Peace Prize, actually.
Right. No, I think he did. There was a very big story. It's about 2-3 years ago. And then other microfinance companies came to America, and that's how you came up with Kickstarter and a lot of the other companies that are now being used today. How about a couple of questions for Bill?
Go ahead.
What was one of your biggest challenges that you had to overcome when venturing into a new market? And my other question is, Is there something outside the numbers that you paid attention to that lets you believe that it will be a success?
Yeah. Okay. Two things. Yeah, I'm going to answer the second one first. You definitely pay attention to more than numbers, right? There's an old saying which says if you pay attention to people, the numbers will come. If you pay attention to numbers, the people will go. And I think that's generally true. In other words, you have to focus on your market, on who's your customer. And that's people. That's all about people. So you definitely have to focus. Now, you do have to figure out a way to make it into a financially viable proposition. But the main things that you're looking at in a lot of these markets is, how much money do people have, right? And how do they use that money? How do they get that money? I'll give you a really good example. When we first started in Mexico, at that time, if a young Mexican generally wanted to buy a house, right? Historically they would borrow the money from a relative or a friend to build their house or to buy their house, their first house. They did not use banks for that purpose. They did not use financial institutions. They would go to, Uncle Joe and ask Uncle Joe, could I borrow money from you? Now, the interesting thing is, and you say, what does that have to do with insurance? Well, that started to change. We kept watching the trends of where people are borrowing from family and friends, and that's declining. And then you watch the other trend where people are borrowing from banks, from financial institutions, and that's increasing. So what does that mean? Well, if you take a loan for $10,000, right, and you borrow it from your Uncle Joe for your house, and you die, and you don't have the $10,000, maybe Uncle Joe will let your family stay in that house. Maybe, because he's your uncle, right? He's your friend, or he's your relative. If you borrow $10,000 from a bank and you die, and you're not, and therefore you can't pay back the loan, you think the bank's going to let your family stay in that house? They're not. They're going to repossess. They're going to foreclose the mortgage, and they're going to take back the house. So what we said to people was, when you take your loan, when you start borrowing money from a bank, you should put life insurance on that loan, right? Meaning, if you die, at least your family will have the money. In fact, on those mortgage insurance policies, the money gets paid directly to the bank, so your family ends up owning the house, right? So that's just one example. So that's one thing. In terms of challenges, there are lots of challenges. I would say the challenge is, number one, convincing people in the market that you have something that they really need. In other words, lots of times people need something, but they don't know they need it, right? They don't know they need it until until you explain it to them, right? And so educating people, convincing people in the market is very difficult in a lot of these markets, because a lot of times people don't get it, and it takes a while to do it. The other thing that I think is a big challenge is persuading backers. In other words, persuading people, because if you say, I'm going to go off and sell insurance in Bangladesh, you're going to get a lot of people who are very skeptical about that. And you're going to have to do a lot of convincing to get them to support you. So those are challenges. And then whenever you work outside the United States, and I've worked in 60 countries outside the United States, the cultural differences are enormous. So one of the things you have to do, you have to be very sensitive to the fact that you are doing business in their country. It's not your country, it's their country. And they have their own culture, they have their own, views of what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. They have their own laws. And so you have to figure out, how am I going to do business in this particular country? And it's not an easy thing. And you do have to be willing to learn. In other words, you can't go there, because the first thing they hate in many countries is, and everybody hates it. If I walk in here today and I say, look, folks, I have all the answers, right? You just listen to me. I'll tell you exactly what you're going to resent that, right? You're going to say, who the hell is he? It's the same thing in these countries. They're not interested in some American coming and telling them, this is the answer to all your problems. You have to figure out how are you going to work inside their country, and it is challenging.